Welcome back to the Highway 49 podcast. We are back with episode 89 of the show, and the group looks a little bit different today. We subbed Hannah for Jerry. We're talking NBA hoops, talking Hornets. Charlotte 49ers are on one of like the longest breaks the program's ever had for football. They've got South Florida coming to town this weekend, so we're pivoting, focusing on Hornets. NBA Cup's underway. We're about 11 games into the season now. But as always, before we dive into the show, let's hit the best thing we've seen this week. Jeremy, talk to us, man.
I'm not really prepared for this.
What?
So let me try and think off the bat. Okay, yeah, my birthday was on Friday.
Oh,
Turned
happy,
2-4.
happy
That's my
belated.
Kobe year right there. And I'm not gonna say it's the best thing because I don't root for any team, but seeing that Brandon Miller game winner and then the back-to-back win that they had was pretty cool. But other than that, actually, yeah, I got one. Silo. You guys know I love movies and TV. Silo, new or TV show. Didn't know how good it was. Checked it out, finished it in like 2 days, binged it, and the ending last night was insane. Season two somehow drops on the 15th. So I watched it at the perfect time to go right into season two. That's the best thing I've seen. I know it's a lot, but it's been a pretty good week.
It's all
Jerry, how
right.
about you, man?
I don't know if I could top that, coming from our TV movie guru here, but coach wrestling on the side, so kind of seeing the kids get their first win over the last week, and middle schoolers don't really know what to do with their emotions sometimes, so a lot of them are just like screaming. We
I don't know
lost
what
the
to do
team
with my
point
hands.
because of that. Yeah, like it's literally just like
Mm. They deducted a point because of it.
they deducted a team point because somebody ripped off their headgear and said, "Let's go," on the mat. So, but hey, I love the emotion. You take a win's
Yeah.
a win, so it's dope.
Definitely. For me, just went to Chicago this past weekend, got to check out the United Center, see the statue of the second greatest player of all time. That was cool.
Oh, go
Uh,
home.
nah.
Let's cut this one out.
Nah, man, but it was good to catch up with my brother. It's funny, the whole reason we went to Chicago was for this concert, and come to find out the night before the show, the concert gets canceled because the band is stuck in Denver with this snowstorm going on. So we made the most of it though. Chicago is a really fun city. We'll definitely be back, but man, it is fun to watch Ant Edwards play in person. The Wolves were in town, and man, that dude is top tier entertainment.
Yeah, I was just watching the game and I was like, yo, what is happening? Let's see, let's just have a Hunter check-in. Let's see how the Minnesota Timberwolves Chicago Bulls game's going on. So I throw it on League Pass and Ant just hits like three threes in a row and starts screaming at everybody. I texted Hunter, I was like, yo, this guy's insane. What's happening?
Dude, he tried to
Goodness.
put, I think it was Vucevic in the rim, and he ultimately missed the dunk, but it was like,
That
all right,
split second when you thought he was gonna do it, whole crowd was on their toes, huh?
oh yeah.
That's a
Let's dive
shame.
in. Let's dive into it though, guys. Checking in on the Hornets. Currently, right now, sitting at 4-7. They're 11th in the East. Clearly, the what has plagued early in the season is injuries. You've missed Mark Williams since the season got going. Nick Richards for a portion. Trey Mann's been out for a couple games. The constant, which is exciting, obviously, for Hornets fans, is LaMelo Ball stayed on the court. For you guys, he's averaging 29, 6, and 5 right now, or I guess really 36 and 5. What have you seen from him as far as taking that next step this season and kind of returning to the lineup and giving Hornets fan that level of excitement that I think hasn't been there as far as some of the shot making?
This isn't much different from what we've seen from him. When healthy, we know LaMelo Ball's the talent is there. I think the biggest leap I've seen though was the fourth quarter scoring
Yeah.
and leading the league at one point. I don't think he is anymore, but to be able to, what they're gonna do. The team in the fourth quarter, a lot of them are just like, you know what, we're gonna start blitzing this guy because we want to get the ball out of his hands. We'll let Josh Green, whoever, beat us. And he's still able to give you 10, 15 in the fourth quarter. So the way he's able to get to his shots, because that's the thing with LaMelo Ball and his jumper, it looks the same every time, sort of, because it's like a base shot. It's not a jump shot. So as long as he can get back to his base and he can release it, he feels comfortable. It doesn't matter what platform, what angle that's on. And I think he's found more ways this season to get to that base through his dribble packages, and that's been really cool to see. But I mean, in general, this is a LaMelo Ball that the NBA fell in love with. The guy that plays like he's on a blacktop or at the YMCA, just kind of. I saw a tweet saying he plays like he has an earbud in his ear. Like he plays the game And when you think about the NBA, right, he has that kind of, I know Charlotte's not the biggest market, but he has that kind of allure that people want to go watch LaMelo ball, right? The Hornets might be a really fun league pass team because you have a guy like and LaMelo. So overall, just reaction so far. This is the guy that we knew was here. Now we just got to see it, be consistent, stay on the court. And so far, we've seen that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's really a whole lot to add to any of that. I mean, in terms of the shot shooting form, it's definitely more of a set shot, which is what you see out of most bigs nowadays. So it's a little weird, but the unorthodox jumpers nowadays, you see it work out 9 times out of 10, just like how his brother happened to tweak his a little bit. But the only thing that scares me about it is how high his usage rate is, since it is #1 in the league so far. I wish Charles Lee had another play initiator to kind of bring into the system. Brandon Miller sometimes plays that role, but maybe not enough. I thought the one side of LaMelo's game that we would see grow a little more with Brandon Miller being back and LaMelo healthy would be Melo off-ball sets.
Yep.
Maybe something off of ATO where he's just catching the ball instead of inbounding it or instead of coming to go get it. So I'm a little nervous about that, but yeah, this is exactly what we saw out of his All-Star season in 2022. He can create a shot better than most. He can shoot over the top over smaller guards. And if you do put a forward on him, he's probably going to either blow by them, make a play, hit a cutter, or even do stuff out of the short roll with any of the bigs that the Hornets have available. So I think for the most part, I'm not surprised. Even though the rest of the league might be a little shocked, when we did have him healthy, this team with Gordon Hayward and with that weird bunch of guys back in 2022 was around the 4 to 5 seed spot, which was kind of like, whoa, maybe they can actually do something. Then injuries hit. So hopefully this year, as long as he's healthy, I know you mentioned the injury list, Hunter, with everybody that's on IR and stuff, but if he's healthy, there's going to be a shot for the Hornets to actually get somewhere, but it's all about him. And that's where everything's going to revolve around, but it's definitely not a shocker at all.
No doubt, man. And I saw something funny the other day. Was it Chandler Parsons talking about if he was in LA, he'd be a bigger household name? I really think that's lazy take. One thing that you
14th in jersey sales right now in the
yeah,
NBA.
man. And he's been that way most of his career, if not all of his career. Um, but Jerry, you said one thing, and this Melo's already hit quite a few shots this year that make you just like throw your hands up. But there
Yeah.
was a shot against Boston falling away in front of their bench. You talk about unorthodox shots. That's just a shot maker, man. I don't know another way to say that. You mentioned that you got to talk to some of the Celtics players about that.
Yeah, like literally when I went in the Boston locker room to wait on Derek White and a couple of the other guys they sent to the podium, Jaylen Brown and Peyton Pritchard were literally discussing what happened. And Jaylen Brown was like, that shot he hit out of bounds fading back. And Peyton Pritchard was like, the one on me, right? Yeah, I thought I was good enough. And Jaylen Brown, can I curse on here? I don't
Yeah,
know
man, let it fly. Hey,
if
Jeremy said the president on here, man.
Well, Jaylen Brown was literally like, yo, that shit was ridiculous. And
Yeah,
Peyton Pritchard just threw his hands up. It's like, that motherfucker cold. So, I mean, that kind of goes to show, and that's the best team in the league we're talking about, right? With the best players, the best bench, the best starting lineup, and all that. And all of them are just nodding in awe. Drew Holiday included, Derek White included, were two of the league's best perimeter defenders. Just like, wow, there's nothing you can do with that. So that goes to show LaMelo, when healthy, like, we talked about this off camera at the games, guys. That's a top 5 point guard in the league. And I think that solidifies it when you get the stamp of approval from an elite defensive squad like the Boston Celtics.
it's interesting watching, and we talked about this at the games before. Like some of the shots that he makes, we wish we were mic'd up during some of the conversations and feeling like Joe Rogan in front of the UFC cage, like holding each other back. But yeah, he's got that lore to him that and the joy of like watching him play and the joy that he plays with. So definitely, man, it's fun to see him on the court. We talked a lot about injuries, and obviously that's been a topic around him. And I want to get into the best lineup around this team when healthy, because obviously we haven't seen that. And it's really been there was a 2 game stretch last year when we saw that, and that was Terry Rozier, Brandon, Mark Williams, Miles, and Melo. They actually beat Boston at home in OT. But that has been something that we're yet to see this year. Mark Williams missing all 11 games so far, dealing with that foot injury lingering from training camp. But Jeremy, I want to toss this to you. When you think about the best lineup when healthy with this roster, what's the best 5 you can put on the floor right now as currently
Uh,
constructed?
This is so tough. So before I get to my best five, I want to talk about the roles I want in my starting five because I think that will kind of clear up for other people what my game plan is for this. You want to start out with, of course, a point guard. He can get to whatever spot he wants on the court. He can facilitate the ball. That's LaMelo Ball. The next thing for shooting guard, I like my shooting guards to be plug and play players, right? So that Josh Green, that AJ Green, I guess for the Bucks. There's a lot of plug and play players, Josh Hart types of guys, Casey Wallace, these types of guys, because I don't think my shooting guard needs to be touching the ball a whole lot, truthfully. Number three, I want that three guy, that kind of wing 6'7", 6'8", to be a floor spacer. I mean, a guy that can absolutely rip it from three. We have that in Brandon Miller. He can also attack the paint. Uh, you like him to maybe facilitate a little more off cuts and stuff when he's not dribbling the ball, but that's what I want in my three. In my four, I want a guy that is taking the defensive responsibility of guarding the opposing team's best wing. That's Jason Tatum, that's whatever, right? So I know with that four, hey, I don't have to worry about Paul George tonight. I don't have to worry about blank player tonight because that player is going to take that responsibility, i.e., an Andrew Wiggins, right? Who can
Mhm.
also be a four, space the floor a little bit. Then my five, I want a traditional center that can just bruise you down low. Of course, a floor spacing one sounds good. It's nice to have a Lauri Markkinen, but if you don't, I'm completely fine with the Walker Kessler, right? So going off of that kind of base, that outline, my five's got to be Melo, Josh Green, Brandon Miller. This is tough for me, and this is really tough for me. Grant Williams at the four and Mark Williams at the five. Just because for right now, I know Miles is a great downhill guy, and I think he plays well with lobs and the ATOs. We see Charles Lee ran two ATOs, one right out of half, the second one to start the fourth quarter against who was it? I forgot who it
That was
was.
against Detroit.
Against Detroit, yeah, and
Yep.
in a win they had, and asked him about that in post game. Matt Alkaiza, shout out to him, and he was like, "Man, I got to change my ATOs now because you guys are hinting in and cluing in at what we're doing." But having a guy like Miles allows you to run those plays. The thing about it is Grant as a transition 3-point shooter, I think is really underrated. And when we see him practice and warm up shoot arounds before the game, the only threes he's taking are transition pull ups where the guy will bounce him the ball or throw him the ball as he's running up, catches it in stride, launches it. Those are the threes he's taking. So I like that he's only attempting the actual threes he's going to be taking in the games. That's my four. And Mark Williams, man, got to have some conversations soon, but today's not that day. Mark Williams as the five, because when he plays, I mean, the guy's a double-double machine. And I
Mhm.
think when you have a guy like LaMelo Ball, you need to have a traditional five alongside that can be that lob threat. And I love Taj Gibson, 16th season. He's just not that guy right now.
I think Taj Gibson is probably aware that he's not that guy too. Shout out to Unc though. Shout out to Unc as they call him in the Hornets locker room. Honestly, I don't have a problem with that. I think in terms of versatility is kind of where I'm gonna try to lean towards. And although I do like Miles coming off the bench, because along with Trey Man, if we're talking about a healthy lineup, you talk about shot creation, you talk about ATOs, you could still run similar sets with Trey Man, and you could also stagger the lineups, right? So you don't have to finish the game with those five guys that you threw out there. So I'm cool with that. Um, I might surprise you too, because I know we have our conversations during the games and stuff, but obviously my one will stay the same. That is clearly LaMelo Ball. That's no different. I'm actually gonna play again Cody Martin here. Like in terms of two-way potential, yeah. Like I know it's kind of shocking, but I kind of like Josh Green being that two off the bench with
Yeah.
Trey Mann and with a potential Miles or Grant Williams, like where I know my second unit is going to be solid. Cody Martin is a solid defender. I wish he was a little bit more of efficient of a three-point shooter, but the playmaking skills is there for him since he did play back in college at Nevada all those years ago. And for Charlotte, with LaMelo Ball being absent, with Terry Rozier having injuries in the past, he stepped into that role and it's done a solid job. Like I'm not super off ball. I don't love him, but I think he's solid enough to actually be a solid piece. And I like a Swiss Army knife at my two. Three is going to be Brandon Miller. I think I kind of struggled because I kind of want to put him at the two sometimes, but
Yep.
I don't think Charlotte has the personnel to allow him to slide at the two because I don't really love Miles at the three.
Hmm.
So Brandon Miller would be that three guy, a guy that can space the floor, create his own shot, alongside LaMelo. Again, you mentioned the playmaking thing, Jeremy, which is probably my biggest like knock at B Mill, where I just want to see him open up his vision a little bit more because the lanes are always there. And I think playing alongside LaMelo, again, I can't harp on this enough. Off ball LaMelo would really unlock him and take down that usage rate a little bit. Because as fun as it is for us to come to games and see LaMelo just cross somebody or take it to the cup and throw a lob, I would much rather see him come off of elevator screens or pin downs or flare screens or whatever it is. It just makes life easier as a superstar player. Look at Steph Curry and Golden State. That should be the blueprint that LaMelo somewhat follows. As for my four,
It's
I think I'm
tough,
gonna go.
man.
It is tough. Like I'm kind of torn, but I think I'm also going to stick Miles on the bench here. I think I like Grant Williams too. Like you mentioned the trail three from Grant, which is amazing, but as a low post defender, Grant Williams is a little better in that department to me. On the perimeter, Miles could lock down. I think he's great at that. And he might be the more versatile defender, but I think Grant has that dog in him to hold his own on the perimeter if taken out there. But I'd like him better guarding those small ball fours or those small ball fives in this day and age. And yeah, my five man stays the same too. Mark Williams. Like you talk about him being a double double machine, but I'm just more impressed at his ability to just switch. Like
Hmm.
getting put on an island with some of the best point guards in the league. Yeah, you're probably going to get cooked a couple times throughout a possession. But more often than not, I see him force a turnover or see him force the guy to pass out of a bad shot attempt. So just being able to alter shots anywhere on the court is what makes Mark Williams so versatile for as a defender. So I just love him. I just need him to be healthy. But
Bad.
that'll be my five.
Yeah, I mean, I like what you said a lot. Remember Steve Clifford last year? He told us, "Hey, Brandon Miller's a two right now, but his position when he becomes Brandon Miller will be small forward."
Yeah.
I mean, the guy's 6'8", and sometimes you're like, "Dang, is he maybe even like 6'8.5?" Going on to what you said about LaMelo Ball, off ball, whatever. I get it how Stephen Curry like might be a blueprint, but that's not LaMelo Ball. He's not running off pin downs and coming baseline and stuff. I think it's more like a Luca, where everyone has for years has been saying, "Oh man, you know what Luca needs to do? Get off ball more." That's not Luca. Luca's on ball. So the only times Luca's really off ball is when he's coming off like a pin down to get to the elbow of the block and post somebody up. Then he catches it, he's back on ball, but now he's post ups. Melo can't
Or
do that with the post up. So I think that like Melo's an on-ball player, and really what it comes down to is having that second playmaker like a Kyrie Irving, and I think they're growing that in Brandon, where okay, Luca, take this possession off. Brandon got it. Okay, Luca, do this. Brandon got it, and maybe you'll catch that swing three, but most often than not, it's like you want the ball in Melo's hands, and taking it out of his hands isn't the best for the team. And last thing I'll say is I like your Grant point about guarding fives, his bigs. I think that's why they beat the Pacers. And I didn't expect them to beat the Pacers, but what I saw early on, and I wish I could have asked Coach this in the post presser, but got cut short, was the Pacers looked and saw the Hornets front court and said, "Oh, we're gonna bruise them down low." That's not how the Pacers play. That's not their style of play. They're not bruisers.
They're
They're a
running gun.
running gun team. They're go up and down, shoot threes. The second you start biting on threes, then they kick it, penetration, kick it back out for a three. Then you get Tyrese Halliburton in space going downhill. That's what you want. But they became a bruising team. Like they're playing like the Orlando Magic. They're giving post ups to Miles Turner, who has Grant Williams guarding him, and Miles is trying to force it down low. That's not his game, and that's why the Hornets won because they somehow tricked the Pacers into stop playing their style of basketball based off their lineup. And seeing Grant guard Miles and Diabate guard Miles and Grant guard, all these bigs for the Pacers, I was like, wow, they're playing into his hands where sometimes Grant, not often, but sometimes he can be a sneaky good defender at the five.
Yeah.
definitely. Go
Before
there.
before you roll, Hunter, I just want to rebuttal. Like I think everything was perfect what you said. It's just when I look at LaMelo, it doesn't have to be that perfect step. That's the best off-ball player in NBA history.
For
I
sure.
don't expect anybody to look
You just
like
want
him.
to see some.
Yeah, like it doesn't have to be every single possession because we know what the Hornets don't have on their squad is a Draymond Green, who's a
Yeah.
real play initiator for the Golden State Warriors. We all know that. But more so, I just need to see things. He doesn't have to just stand in a corner either. Like obviously there has to be some movement, but it's just off-ball screens that I want to see LaMelo get because I think ultimately that'll save you throughout the rest of the season. This guy hasn't played like what is this, 22 games last year? Like we haven't
Yeah.
seen he's already at half of that already. So I'm kind of just trying to preserve him for as long as possible. And I get that he can't move as laterally or as quick as Steph to get in and out of those cuts. LaMelo's 6'7" as well. This dude is
Yeah.
tall. So I'm not expecting him to come off of pin downs and just wait for the ball and get ready to shoot it. It's just more so I need to see more lateral movement out of him. I don't know what Charles Lee has to do. Maybe it is more ATOs where he's just not inbounding the ball. You just set double screens, set elevators, and kind of see what he could do here. But that's I get the Luka point too because he's definitely more Luka than he is Steph in terms of how he's going to operate with and without the ball. If he's not having, he's probably going to stand off somewhere to kind of attract the defense's attention. I really just want to see some type of actions to where he can just have an easy shot, even if that's just him being a cutter. Like maybe that's more his speed. I don't know. I just usage rate being this high this early in the season through 11 games
It is
It's
concerning.
tough.
with a guy with this injury history, yeah, it makes me really nervous.
Yeah, you definitely hold your breath sometimes watching him go to the rim. You made a point about Draymond, and this kind of gets back into my five. With Grant Williams, we saw him play a little bit of that point forward role late last season. Do you guys think that there's any semblance of his game there that he could do that with this unit, like continuously or consistently?
Ooh, I think it's less about Grant and more about what you surround him with right now. And I get it, Grant. You're a great dude. Like I love how he fist bumps everybody on the media before he starts to shoot around and stuff. But I mean, he'll tell you this too. Like he's a Draymond light, like a diet Draymond almost, where he can do some of those things. But I'll tell you what, if you give Grant Williams Stephen Curry, I hate to make this point, if you give Grant Stephen Curry, it's a whole nother ball game, right?
Yeah,
Because Steph is running around, and this is a Hall of Famer first ballot I'm talking about in Draymond. I'm not taking anything away. I'm just saying that if the Hornets had knocked down shooters that are sprinting baseline to baseline and never stopping with the ball, it makes your job a lot easier as
right.
that point forward guy. Not even point forward, like, hey, I just posted up or I'm at the elbow, I'm facing the basket, and now I have cutters coming in either direction. Now I have someone coming off a pin down that I can give a drop back pass to. All those things, all the possibilities widen when you have those guys. The Hornets don't right now. So trying to expect him to play like Draymond without having the Draymond personnel, I think we're doing a disservice.
Yeah,
Definitely.
it's definitely a little bit of a steep task. I'll just add in like I like the Draymond light comparison because like we talked about with Charles Lee about Nick Richards, right? With Jeremy, you asked the question where with the short roll or the seam pass, as Charles Lee likes to call it, but Grant does exceed in those short roll situations. That is definitely something he does very well. But the IQ's there. I'll give Grant that nod. Like the IQ's there, the intangibles are there to read the defense and kind of make the right play. But I don't know if, like Jeremy said, we don't have the personnel, but I don't know if we have the consistency out of our guys either to kind of
Right.
keep a consistent role there.
So the reason I bring that up though is because my five is similar to y'all, except I've got Brandon at the two. Melo, Brandon. I do have Miles on my five, and then Grant at the four, Mark at the five. It's I guess I don't even want to call it a bigger starting five because reality is Grant Williams is also 6'6", just as well as Miles. Neither one of them, in my opinion, are good enough at the four to guard the other team's best wing, like a Giannis or a Tatum, like Jeremy mentioned. Like if you've got Miles going against Giannis, Giannis is getting 30 and 15. If he's going against Tatum, it's the same thing. You don't have that four man, which is why I want to get into this a little bit too. To Jean Salon coming over from France in the draft, six overall. It's been a little bit of a slow start for him. We've talked about it during the games. He's gotten some run. He had a few threes against Boston in the first night of that back-to-back, that Friday night game. We've seen a little bit of flashes. He's a much better shooter than I originally thought when he was drafted. But I'm curious, starting with Jerry and then go to Jeremy. What is your like first impression this early into his rookie year for Salon?
I think the game is moving incredibly fast for him right now. I
Yeah.
think we see times on the courts, especially, I say this all the time, when he's bringing the ball up, it looks like when a defender undercuts him or kind of pressures him a little bit, he freezes up, he tenses up, and just looks to the outlet. And that's fine. I think a lot of foreign players that come over the game's a lot slower. There's a lot more ball movement overseas too, to where now he's playing with one of the best ISO players in the game, and LaMelo, and probably Brandon as well, who could be in that discussion. But right now, I think it's just a high motor and a good jump shot. I think over the summer we need to see him kind of add some things to his game, but the thing that sticks out the most is definitely the motor.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not too worried about it, guys. And the reason why too is because I'm kind of looking at the timeline of this team, and the Hornets didn't expect him to be good. I think they're expecting exactly what he's doing right now, with Tijon, and I like how you made that good segue into like you want that four that can guard Tatum or Giannis, because that's the frame of player, right? That could do it in Tijon. And then Jerry's good point where he's off ball a lot and he's kind of not watching, but he's not a focal point in the offense or defense. I think what he needs to focus on now, and I think this is what Charles and them are trying to preach to him, is if you're off ball, we need you to use that incredibly high motor to make sure you box the hell out of your opponent. We
Yep.
need to make sure you use that incredibly high motor so that when we have an outlet and Melo gets the board, you're down the floor ready for that Kevin Love Hail Mary. Hey, I can just catch it, throw it, like lay it up. We want you to learn the flow of NBA defense and offense and know how to game the system. And it takes an entire year, sometimes two, to do that. A good example, Dyson Daniels, right? Where he was just a shoo-in to that Atlanta Hawks trade. And now he's averaging 4 steals a game.
He had a
And
triple double the other night.
that was Jalen Johnson, who just got the
Jalen. Okay,
extension,
okay.
5 for 150. Shout out to him. Where Dyson Daniels on the Pelicans, if the Pelicans knew he would be playing like this, they would have not traded Deontay Murray. I'll tell you that right now. Because Dyson Daniels is one of the best perimeter defenders, if not the best in the NBA right now. He is a hound, but it takes time for those foreign guys, I think Dyson's from Australia, to kind
Yeah.
of learn the speed of the game. So Tijon, when you're guarding Jason Tatum or DeMar DeRozan or Pascal Siakam, who goes off for 25 in that game, don't jump. If he's in the mid range, he's fading away, make him make that tough shot. Don't bite, right? Don't get a offensive screen, like a illegal screen because you're going too fast. I think that's the big thing for him, slowing down, learning the game, and then in the offseason, he can really start focusing on improving his game. But for right now, it's all the little things, and we've got to see that more from Tijon.
Definitely. I mean, two starts this early in his career. He's gotten some exposure. I don't think a little stint with the G League would hurt too bad. I think it could be beneficial to let him have the ball in his hands, although I don't think that's the role he's going to play with this team regardless. So it's kind of a double-edged sword on that in my mind because with Melo and Brandon, I don't think he's ever going to be in that kind of demanding the ball setting based on his skill set. But you're exactly right, Jay. He's going to have to be the guy that guards the best teams, the best front court players for the other team. I'm not saying the fives, but wings and such. Main reason I say that about Tajon with the G League is just to build that confidence because you can see sometimes with the ball in his hands, it's not like a deer in the headlights. I won't go that far, but you can tell that he's not comfortable at the speed yet. And I think sometimes it's just like almost like a hot potato, like let me get this out of my hands and find my flow in the offense. But with that, Charlotte's got a big game Saturday against Milwaukee. Obviously, Milwaukee has been the team we expected this year, and I think you could say that for a lot of the Eastern Conference outside of some of your top dogs, Cleveland, Boston, and New York. What do you guys think of the Eastern Conference? Because just a couple days ago, or I guess maybe about a week ago now, the Hornets are sitting at 4-5, and they're fourth in the Eastern Conference. Obviously, the Western Conference has been a lot tougher early in the action. But what do you guys think overall about kind of the state of this conference, especially with the NBA Cup getting started this week? Jerry, you go first.
I think in general the East is weak. Like, but it's been like that for years, right? There's only just looking at the standings now, there's only three teams at the time of this recording that are over 500, where the
Crazy.
West has like eight of them, or something like that. It's kind of crazy just to look at it, but for a team like the Charlotte Hornets, right, or the team like the Detroit Pistons, or anybody that we considered bottom feeders of the Eastern Conferences over the last couple of years, there's a shot for them to slide into that eight spot or slide into that seven spot because everybody's kind of trying to figure out who they are right now. And everybody has different storylines and question marks. You mentioned the Bucks who we're about to take on here. We don't know if Doc Rivers is going to be able to finish out the season if they drop a game to us or as the season goes on, these teams that they should beat, they probably haven't won. The Knicks don't look all that great because Karl Anthony Towns, the Knicks figured out, wow, he's really not that great of an interior defender, which is why Minnesota went to go get Rudy Gobert in the first place. But that's kind of biting them in the ass right now until Mitchell Robinson comes back in mid-January or whatever he's scheduled to do. But the East in general just looks like it's going to be top heavy, which it has been for the last couple of decades when LeBron was in it throughout the 2010s. And even now, it was Boston and the rest. Now we got Cleveland kind of rolling through and kind of seizing at least dominance in the regular season to kind of see how things shake out. But this makes it so much more wide open
Yeah.
when there's only three teams that are over 500 about 13, 14 games in. But I think this is a time for a team like the Charlotte Hornets or anybody that has long playoff droughts. This is your best chance to sneak in while you can and steal some wins from some of these elite teams that are at the top.
Yeah, oh man, a few things. I kind of agree with you. I kind of don't. I think the dust will settle, and when the dust settles, we'll still be seeing the same teams we usually see. The Celtics, the Cavaliers are a real team in the East, 13 and 0. You got to
Absolutely.
stop just acting like they're
Yeah.
a first round exit. The
Oh,
Cavaliers, the
no.
Magic, Paolo Banchero goes for 50 points. He gets injured 2 days later, and they are still over 500 right now. That's a legitimate team with two all-stars,
Won four in
in
a
the
row.
NBA.
Yeah.
Pardon me?
Won four in a row. Yeah.
Won four in a row. The Knicks, Karl Anthony Towns, dude, he's having his best season offensively of his career. He had 46 and 10 last night. He had 48 a couple nights ago. This has unlocked him. And a lot of people were saying, oh, he's gonna have to take a smaller role with Jalen Brunson. No, that guy is having the time of his life in New York, getting shots up with the spacing that he has, playing the role that he's in. I get it, interior defense, that's a big problem. Mitchell's got to get back. But then the Pacers too, and I get it. These aren't sexy teams with sexy names, right? But these are teams that win basketball games in the playoffs. They know how to win with good head coaches like Rick Carlisle, excuse me. So the NBA, you're right. It's open from like 7 to 9, 7 to 10, but the top six is there. And that's a good point why you say, like, when the Hornets need to steal some games, you got to win in Philadelphia. When
Yeah.
Jared McCain gives you 25 and Tyrese is out and Embiid's out and Paul George, that's kind of a must win if you're trying to sneak in to that upper echelon of the East. And, looking back on it, the Bucks, they're sliding. It took them to going to OT to beat the Pistons last night because what's his name? Ron
Ron
Holland,
Holland.
the
Yeah.
rookie, missed two free throws. He's a 91.7% free throw shooter this season. He missed two in a row. So when you think about where the Bucks are right now, none of these games are like, oh, we're gonna get pummeled. I get it, you're short manned, you're undermanned, but you have the third highest scorer in the NBA right now. And if you can get a good Brandon Miller game, you're in every single game on the schedule right now.
Yeah, I agree. It's really weird looking at the standings, and obviously, as Jerry said, 13-ish games in the season, but seeing Philadelphia at 2-9, seeing Milwaukee at 4-8, Hornets are sitting there at 4-7. That win over Detroit looks really big right now in the grand scheme of things. Brandon Miller at the buzzer. But you're right, man. They have to get games like the Sixers game the other night. You have to be able to close in those final moments. And Jeremy, this is talking to you, or I was texting you about this. Like, I think that they should be able to compete in these games with Orlando, especially with Paolo not in the fold. Obviously, Orlando is a much better team this year. We talked about the addition of KCP. What do you think the ceiling is of this team this year? Like in your guys' mind, you kind of sit, obviously, I think it's 8 years now without a playoff appearance, the longest drought in the NBA. In my mind, this is around a play-in team that could find themselves in that 7 to 8 range, hopefully have multiple opportunities to get in this time. But what do you guys think is kind of the ceiling? Obviously, so much time to go in the season and so many injuries that have kind of derailed early in the action.
Yeah, I can't believe we're saying this again. It's a broken, sound system. But Mark Williams, you need a front court guy. Nick Richards, even if they had one of those two, I'd be like, my outlook would be completely different. I
Yeah.
don't know how much burn Taj Gibson can get every night. It's around 15 minutes a game. Diabate, that guy's a rebounding monster. You gotta get someone that can space the floor a little bit, take some weight off of Grant's shoulders. Right now, it looks bleak for me. It does because when I watch them play a team like the 76ers, that's not a game you should lose. That's not a game where Jared McCain should have 25. And that's not a game that, former Hornet Kelly Oubre looks like the second coming of Scottie Pippen. These are games you kind of have to win. So I'm a little concerned with that, but for me, it comes to, and we haven't talked about this yet, but it comes down to Brandon. And I
Yeah.
know sophomore slump is a big word people use. I'm not ready to say that yet at all. However, I think a lot of people see rookies have a good rookie season and just have the same trajectory they think that a player from year 4 to year 5 has, right? Or a player from year 6 to year 8. Like, oh, they hit their prime. No, people were expecting Brandon, partly I was in it, to be averaging 22 points a game this year off of crazy stuff because they're saying, oh, well, I can project him going this place. It's gonna be year 3 for me. But for right now, I think he's going through that transition period. And I'd love to hear you guys' opinion on this quickly, where Hornets fans, it's funny, even my Twitter algorithm is just upset Hornets fans. And they're saying
Yeah.
that Brandon Miller has been turned into Davis Bertans by Charles Lee instead of being Paul George because they're taking the mid-range game out of his shot profile. And on one hand, I get that, but you just saw Wemby have 8 threes and have 50 points yesterday when people were complaining that he took the KD route instead of the Hakeem Olajuwon route. When the three-pointer is falling like a guy like Brandon Miller can make it fall, it opens your game up so much. There's going to be a little adjustment period, which I think we're seeing right now. But once it happens, that's really the next step to making the playing game because it can't just be Melo giving you 30 and Brandon giving you 15. It's got to be a little more balanced.
Yeah, that goes back to the usage rate thing, right? Where I don't want LaMelo to have this term also been floating around on Hornets Twitter, being a shot chucker or taking bad quality shots. I think I've seen some NBA University posts where I think his shot quality is an F right now, despite him averaging, damn near 30 points a game. Um, I don't know. To be honest, Hunter, like I'm a little bleak too. I'm not thinking it's going to be the best of years in terms of us pushing for the playoffs quite yet, even though we could have had the pieces to do it. I don't know if we're going to be healthy enough because the center that I'm looking at in Mark Williams, who we all put in our starting five,
Yep.
like if the Hornets were healthy, he's that important. And originally I was thinking coming into the season, this is the key. If you can't guard anybody, you're not going to make it to the postseason. And even if you did, you're not going to beat anybody. You probably get swept. So I mean, without Mark Williams, I'm a little pessimistic towards it. I could see us winning around 28-ish games, 30-ish games, if we actually are able to figure out what Brandon's role is. And that's what I kind of want to get to now, where we know that he's supposed to be the number 2 guy, sometimes the number 1 scorer on some nights. And this is what I was going to harp on. Him averaging 15 points through the first 7 games doesn't bother me because he's been hurt some of these games, right? He had the hamstring issue coming in. So I think by game 20, game 22, wherever we get to that, I guess, midway point or half a midway point is when I want to see him actually be able to evolve to the offense that Charles Lee's putting in. Yeah, he's definitely attempted a lot of threes this year. That's what the NBA is. We're trying to forget about the mid-range unless your name's DeMar DeRozan or Chris Paul for the most part. So Brandon Miller's game, yeah, I get it. That was the easiest shot for him, and I loved it too. I'm a 2000s basketball head. Getting in that elbow jumper spot or somewhere in space in the mid range is awesome. But the NBA does transition more to threes because it's more than two. But as long as Brandon Miller is able to keep just growing his game to whatever Charles Lee's system is, I'm okay with how it looks right now. I'm not ready to hit the panic button, but to answer your original question, Hunter, I don't know. I think we might be right on the borderline. We might get in that 9 and 10 game, but we're gonna have to win some of these games, like against Philadelphia, or steal one, like how we did against the Pacers. Like
Yeah.
you got to beat teams like that, and you got to catch guys on their off night. So, like Detroit at the buzzer, right? So, I think winning the seesaw fair games is huge. Or take advantage of the Bucks right now. I get Giannis just dropped 59 last night, but when he rolls into your city, there's no telling if he's going to be able to do that again. And is the supporting cast going to step up this time? Because that's been a problem for the Bucks, right? Maybe the Hornets could take advantage of that, but it's all about winning those games that you probably should win, or when the odds aren't as stacked against you. You got to step up and do your thing. But 9 and 10 seed, man, that's what I'm kind of
Man, I
thinking.
love NBA edits. The one I sent you guys where it's like, get it out the net. That's the flash that I see from Brandon, where he's coming off curls and pin downs and just
Yeah.
catching it and not thinking. Just coming off, ooh, catch, bang. And once the shot starts falling, you can kind of see it in that third quarter in his second or third three that he made, where it's like, oh man, the floodgates have opened.
Yeah.
That's what you expect, not expect, but that's what I foresee Brandon's future being. That
Yeah.
guy that's coming off and just being an elite ripper from downtown. And once you start having to play, once you start like Steph, once you start having to try and, beat him to that spot, go over the screen when he's going to try and beat him there, that's when he cuts back door and uses his insane athleticism to beat you at the rim and find others. That's what I foresee. So maybe Charles right now, I'd love to see him run more of those plays we saw in the third quarter against the Pacers where he's just coming off and they're telling him, hey, don't think about it. If you get it, it's a clean shot, clean base, take the shot. I think we need to see more of that from Brandon Miller this season.
And that's the thing. So last season I talked to, and this is Brandon's rookie season, so obviously things evolve, but I talked to an NBA scout who said they thought Brandon could be the second best player on a championship team. And I think if you're the Hornets, you feel good about that because in your mind, LaMelo Ball is the engine. He's the best player on that potential championship team. But I think you guys are exactly right. More sets to get Brandon the ball. I mean, we saw him last year. We talked earlier about maybe swapping primary ball handlers, like how Kyrie and Luka do, how Dame and CJ McCollum did. Obviously, Brandon and Melo are much bigger than Dame and CJ, but we saw Brandon last year in Melo's absence, going up the court, snaking screens, getting to his spots in the mid range, bucket. That's his, like, he can do that. He can give you that in spots in the game where you want Melo to get off the ball. And in my mind, that's his emergence. You're exactly right, Jeremy. Like, that's how they get to the play in. That's how they get to the playoffs. Like as he begins to take over games, as you saw a little bit in the third quarter against the Pacers, he hit what, five threes? One of them was like one of the most ridiculous threes I've seen this season. He hits the buzzer beater against Detroit, and then he has a couple games this year where he struggles. You're right about kind of the ups and downs, the ebbs and flows of the season, but I think him attacking that aggressive mindset and not settling all the time is definitely going to be huge in his growth.
Yeah, we have to talk about this quickly, the foul trouble. Not even foul trouble, I
Oh,
guess, but when we came into this season, one of my biggest things with Brandon was you can't pick up two quick fouls in the first quarter.
Yep.
And yeah, it's to no one's fault but his, because if you're guarding someone at the elbow and they're going up for a jump shot, don't swipe down. Don't get the steal. Make them make a tough midi. That's you won that possession. Your team, your analytics team, for your defensive assistant coaches and film, they're telling you, hey, you won that. You forced him into a tough fadeaway. Why are you swiping down? Oh, wait, you got beat back door. He has an easy layup. Don't foul him after the ball's out of his hands for an easy and one. These are the things or the classic. He's a Paul George disciple, and that's a good thing to be. But when you're trying to fight someone off, when they're playing you and you use the elbow, you push off like Paul George knows not to extend, and Brandon's still extending. Those quick things take you out of your rhythm. They get you on the bench earlier, not by your play, but because you can't afford to pick up three in the first half. And now your rhythm's off. Now that three doesn't feel as good. Now you're playing on eggshells and you don't feel free like you were before. So foul trouble also has to be a kind of thing for Melo and Brandon. They need you too much for you to be swiping down on balls and doing all these things to put your team at jeopardy.
yeah, to kind of piggyback off of that, because we get frustrated watching it all the time, right? And the first 7 minutes, Brandon and LaMelo both have two apiece. I think for the both of them, it's important for them to note you're bigger than most guys that you're guarding already. Like guards are attacking LaMelo Ball, other than SGA. Like most guards in the league are good, and Luka obviously. Most guys are going to be 6'3", 6'4" ish. LaMelo's 6'7". Brandon Miller's 6'9". Like I know we say verticality a lot for centers and power forwards, whatever, shot blockers, but they could literally do similar things just because they already have the height advantage. They have the length to be able to just stick out and kind of push them away or just kind of stick their arms up to get in the way of shots and disrupt things. There's no need. Smaller guards do that, right? Smaller guards play in the cookie jar. Like Steph Curry gets a lot of easy swipe downs. James Harden is a great job at it, even though he's not an elite defender. Guys get up on him, he just swipes at the ball.
Kyle Lowry.
Another one, yeah. these guys have mastered it, but they're also veteran players at this point. You're not going to get those calls because LaMelo and Brandon are just now finding their wings since LaMelo's been hurt, obviously, and Brandon is in year two. There's no need to, I guess, over gamble on some of these plays because I get as young players, no, I got to give all my effort. I need to be able to stop this possession or stop them from scoring. No, you need to live to fight another day and understand that, hey, if they make it, they make it. I did my best on this possession. I'll do better the next possession to be in a better position around the rim or put myself between them and the basket or whatever. It's just right now, it's just defensive IQ is a little low on that side of the court. It's not a knock. It's honestly just a fact. And that's what hurts the Hornets in the long run. Well, why they drop some of these games to teams they should beat.
I think a part of that plays into the fact that they don't have their 7 foot defensive anchor in
Yeah.
the lane, and they don't even have the backup 7 foot shot blocker in the lane. So I'm not saying that I think you guys are right as far as a lot of the swipe fouls and like just low IQ decisions, but I do think it will maybe be beneficial to everyone when they've got Mark and Nick back. Really fast, I want to get to the NBA Cup, but before that, Charlotte's next 5 games, they're sitting at 4-7. They're 11th in the East. They got Milwaukee at home. They go to Cleveland. They go to Brooklyn. They host Detroit again, and then they go to Milwaukee. In my mind, you got to find a way to at least win 3 of those games. What do y'all take on that? Jeremy, you go ahead.
That's the thing with the East, because although it's not like super deep, or sorry, as long as it's not like super strong like the West, like the 10 seed is going to be a playoff team if it went to the East. The Brooklyn Nets aren't an easy win. Like
Right.
Cam
Yeah.
Thomas is
I'm
playing
kind of
some
shocked,
stupid
truly.
good basketball right now, right?
Shout out to Jordy Fernandez, man. Like
Yeah.
he's
Yeah,
really gotten that team right.
yeah. Shout out to them, man. So like just seeing the roster and like, oh, the Nets, oh, the Pistons. The Pistons just went OT with the Bucks. Should have beat them if the rookie made one free throw. So these aren't pushover games, and that's why I think it's going to be really important. I'm hoping that, not hoping, but I think another team will do what the Pacers did and try to, like the Pistons maybe. Hey, Cade had a great game, but dude, let's just give it to Stu and Jalen and make them work down low because they can't stop us. Good. Play right into the Hornets' hands because if you're trying to outbig them, that's not going to work. The only way that works with the size is if you're going to beat them on the offensive glass, beat them on the defensive glass. But trying to go for the
Cleveland is
post
going
isn't
to
going to
kill
work.
them. Cleveland is going to kill them.
Milwaukee on Saturday.
Yeah.
Brooke Lopez and Giannis Antetokounmpo. That's gonna be a sight to behold. Um, because they're upset. This is a team that needs every win they can get, right? This win might bring them over the Hornets in the standings. This is
Yep.
a big game for Giannis and them. So like it's tough. I think you said 5 games.
Yep.
I think they go 2-3 or 1-4. That's just truthfully. You need that guy down low to go up against the Brook
Yeah.
Lopez, and they don't, or even a Giannis, and they don't, or even a
Yeah.
Bobby Portis, and they don't.
It, I I don't want to agree with you because we cover the team and we would love to see them do fantastic.
5-0.
All right, we got to be real.
Yeah,
I'm
and
just
quickly,
kidding.
quickly, sorry, like this isn't us rooting for the team. This is like when we go
That's
to the post pressers, like it's more entertaining. It's easier for us to write. It's easier for us to
yeah,
get these things and be able to produce better. So like it's tough. Like you said, it's tough.
yeah. Like I think 1-4 is probably more so where I'm leaning. Both of these games, you mentioned it. Milwaukee, you have to deal with Giannis for a total of, I'm not that great at math, but is that 96 minutes of having to play with Giannis and Brook Lopez is just that sounds like a match made in hell. And then even though the Brooklyn Nets aren't traditionally the team that we expect to be really good, they're above them in the standings. And I said it, Jordy Fernandez comes in and takes over this head coaching job, and people are talking about the Nets somehow being in the playoff picture and staying there. Now, could I see that? No, because like you said, when the dust settles, I feel like they will kind of slide out. But as of right now, through 13 games, I got to give them their props. They're above the Hornets right now, so that's not going to be an easy game. And then Cleveland, yeah, that's I'm chalking that up as a loss, man. They've been dismantling everybody. And like I've been telling everyone, like, hey, over the offseason, I was like, as long as Darius Garland comes back healthy, because that was a problem last year where He got his eye poked out damn near, was out for a couple weeks, had his jaw wired shut. Like, and there's some personal issues going on with him as well, but he was an all-star back in 2022. And now him and Donovan Mitchell are meshing perfectly. And I love Evan Mobley finally being able to accept, hey, I can space the floor, I can shoot the ball again. So yeah, the Cleveland Cavaliers are probably going to dismantle them. I
Dude, I
look at
forgot Mobley and Allen on that team
That's
too.
what I'm
Like
saying.
this is just
yeah,
a gauntlet of big men you're going to be facing in the past in the next week and a half.
it's
Well,
hard. I think the only teams that you could punk to, like, like you said, how they did the Pacers into, hey, being this post-centric offense that we know you guys aren't, is going to be Detroit and it's going to possibly be Brooklyn. But those are the two games out of the three that Hunter mentioned that I'm like, okay, you can roll out there and win those, but two against Milwaukee and Cleveland, I'm I'm thinking like 1-4, 2-3 in the best case scenario, but yeah, it's
yeah.
going to be kind of rough.
Well, you get Giannis twice in a 5 game span, and then you get Giannis's future team, the Brooklyn Nets. They are role players central to me. Cam Thomas, Dennis Schroeder, Cameron Johnson, Dorian Finney-Smith, Nick Claxton still there. And we got Ben Simmons playing 8 games this year. So yeah, Giannis's future team up there
You
in
mean Cooper
Brooklyn.
Flag?
Hey man, see, I thought they were gonna capture the flag, but now they're out here and they're in the they
Can
got
I
five
quickly
wins.
say, can I quickly say that I was looking into this Giannis thing and I don't want to start getting speculative and stuff, but
It's fine. Do it, please.
what's the timeline? How much time do you want on there aren't many let me cook. There aren't many mega stars in the NBA that demand a trade. Mega stars. I'm not talking like Donovan Mitchell wants out, and shout out to Donovan Mitchell, all-star, right? I'm talking like how many have we really seen? We've seen Kevin Garnett, right? Go to the Celtics. We've seen LeBron James. Kobe tried to do it. The Lakers said, nope, you're not going to the Bulls. You're staying here. Sorry about it. Anthony Davis. We saw Kawhi Leonard be a free agent, kind of want out at the peak, 2019, coming off a championship.
Kevin
Giannis is the
Durant.
next one. You don't see many of these guys who are mega, mega number one option on a championship team, proved it before, saying, I want to switch teams. Now, if you're a team that potentially wants him, how much time do you want to be left on his contract? Because 1 year is too little, right? Why would I trade for Giannis to have a 1 year rental and give up all these pieces for him and then he leaves in free agency? 1 year is not enough. 2 years, that's still scratching the surface. Ooh, you tell me I get 2 years of Giannis, but I gave you five, six, seven first round picks, and he has a chance of leaving in free agency. It's 2.5 and up,
Yeah.
right? Giannis is at 2.5 right now. He's got 2 years and a player option. So if you really think about it, if you're the Bucks and they don't want to trade Giannis, why would they? They would only do it if he forced his way out and told him, I'm not staying. You're getting me. You're losing me for nothing. 2.5 years. This is the time to tell teams, hey, there's enough time on his contract where you can still get a lot of burn out of him. I think this is the time. I think it could be the time.
Yeah, let me go ahead and grab a plate and eat what you serving, man. I mean, I'm with it. I think the only thing I could say to kind of go against what you're saying is that even if a team knows that it's going to be a 1 year rental or a 2 year rental, sometimes it's worth it. You mentioned Kawhi, right? That was obviously that's an anomaly that worked out perfectly. And not to say I condone the injuries that happened to KD and Clay, but it was gift wrap for the Raptors to go ahead and get their first franchise chip, and that worked out. But I think the NBA teams generally are so hungry for a chance to even be competitive. Like, let's just toss in a team out here, the Houston Rockets, who have the assets, who have the draft capital also to make a move for a star like this, and could probably still keep a decent team to actually compete for something out west. Maybe let's say they made the move. If they were able to keep, which they probably wouldn't, Şengün or Jalen Green, I feel like you have to give up one of the two, right, if you want something to actually swing. But let's say they somehow are able to keep them and finesse Cam Whitmore and Amen Thompson and some picks. That would give you the firepower for at least a year to also try to convince Giannis to stay, like how Toronto did Kawhi, where they're naming restaurant menu meals after him in Toronto.
But here's the thing with
Maybe.
Toronto. They got Kawhi when he was a distressed asset. No one knew about the injury. And people had question marks about, is Kawhi Leonard healthy? He hadn't played basketball in how long? He was just sitting out. So they said, oh, people are worried about him. We want him. Here's DeRozan. And they proved to be the overwhelming winners of that. Right now, Giannis just had 58. If you're going to be going and trying to pay a price, it's going to be way higher than Kawhi, and you can't keep the
Absolutely.
core that the Raptors had. If the Raptors were trading for
Yeah,
Kawhi in 2017, that package is completely different than what they
that is
got in
true.
2019.
That is true. Either way, like you said, he's going to dictate what happens, not Milwaukee. So if Giannis demands out, obviously Milwaukee has to do the due diligence by themselves and say, hey, well, this is the proper return, even though the return won't be worth what he is. This is what we want for him, which would be 6 first-round picks and a couple of other guys, some throwing players. Whatever it is, it's all going to happen on his own terms. And either way, no matter what team trades for him, is going to be fucked. Just like how the Spurs traded for DeMar DeRozan when they gave up Kawhi, they were the losers in that deal because they didn't see the postseason for X amount of years. So Milwaukee
Yeah.
knows they're going to be hitting the reset button. But I'm just saying, I think teams will take a shot on them just because of who it is. Even if they know they probably won't be all that great. If there is at least a chance that we might be able to either A, retain him, or B, be competitive and possibly compete for a title, because we know Giannis is going to go play hard, I
Yeah.
could see a team doing that. I don't know who, but it's possible.
Hear me out. Y'all know the girl on Instagram that posts the picture with her man on her private story, and then on her public story, it's a thirst trap. It's just a picture of her. That's how I think of Giannis right now, as far as soft launching his exit, basically. He's talking about if we don't win it this year, they'll have to blow it up, basically. Like that's not a direct quote. So, but he has said on multiple occasions, he's also doubled down in spots by signing these contract extensions when they won the title after getting Drew, when they went and got Dame. But at the same time, he's made it almost as like picture clear to me that he eventually wants to ask out. Jeremy, what do you think on that?
Yeah, I mean, this isn't the era of loyalty and everything. I know you got that timer now, but this isn't the era of loyalty and everything. If you look at Hall of Famers and everything throughout different eras, they, they weren't on one team for their entire career. Steph and Tim Duncan are anomalies. Kevin Garnett went and got another one, right? LeBron went and got another one. This happens. KD went and got another one. You aren't tied down to the team that drafted you, and I think that people forget that a lot. So now when it comes to where should Giannis pair up, I remember 3 years ago we were talking about Luka and Giannis being a duo in Dallas. I don't know. They can't make that happen anymore because, you kind of tied yourself up with Clay and Kyrie. But if you're Giannis, the Brooklyn Nets, well, what do they do for you?
Yeah.
Oh, I want to go to Brooklyn because I like Brooklyn. Cam Thomas is my number two.
I don't,
I
and
don't
that's
see
the thing. I
that.
don't think they're any
Nah.
better, but Brooklyn does have the draft haul after the Mikal Bridges trade where it's like they have
Here's
the
the
capital.
here's where it gets crazy. And my friend texted me this, and I sent the same meme I sent to you, Denzel shutting the door because I didn't even want to like get into the conversation. The team is the Oklahoma City Thunder. And the question is OKC want to say, here's Chet Holmgren.
They're gonna
Here's
have
Chet
to.
Holmgren, and here's our picks. Because if you're the Bucks, it's not just about where Giannis wants to go. It's how am I getting the best offer?
Yeah.
What's the best offer at the end of the day? Which is why the Bucks made that trade with the Heat or with the Blazers because the Blazers had the better trade, or the Bucks had the better trade. So right now it's about does
And you're
Sam
right.
Presti want to do that? And
They got Nikola
it
Topic too
constrains
that's
you.
just sitting there. Like he's
Yeah.
recovering off injury. Like where is he gonna fit in their lineup? You're right about Chet. And Giannis is 29. He'll be 30 in less than a month.
Yeah, I'm look OKC is the perfect landing spot because they're the only ones that can give up the assets and still be good. Because SGA ain't going nowhere. And possibly you're gonna have to give up either J Dub or Chet. And if I'm Milwaukee, I'm gonna ask for them both. Because
Yeah.
look at who I'm giving you. And it's all about what's next for us. Like, how am I going to turn the page after Giannis delivered a championship, multiple time MVP, DPOY winner, all the accolades, like you mentioned, a mega star in the league, arguably the best player in the league if you want to go there. If we're giving you Giannis, it's going to have to be a monstrous deal and it's going to be lopsided. I'm going to probably ask if I'm the Bucks GM, give me J Dub, give me Chet, and an abundance of picks. That's the only way I can really see it working. You still get to keep SGA. You have Hartenstein, you get Caruso, you have Case and Wallace, and you throw in Giannis, that team is still pretty damn good.
Is that the
Well,
biggest trade in NBA history?
I think it would.
Whew.
I
It
think it
might be.
kind of
And
has to
this
be.
is the one thing with Sam Presti, where Sam Presti is a wizard when it comes to drafting and when it comes to buying distressed assets, excuse me, buying low and selling high. Chris Paul for the Rockets. Hey, Chris Paul, come to the Thunder. He's an all-star. He's like top five in MVP voting. They go to the playoffs, they lose to the Rockets in 7 games, and Chris Paul then is traded for a lot more later on. Right? That's how I feel with Sam Presti. He's so good at buying low, selling high, and finding good draft picks.
Other
However,
than Gordon Hayward, that was the
Trey
only person you
man,
Gordon
missed.
Hayward.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's fair. So I've never seen him in a position like this, though. When have we seen Sam Presti? Because this didn't happen with KD. KD walked free agency.
Yep.
When has Sam Presti been given an offer like this? Because this is ultimately what you get the draft capital for. This is why you have the Clippers pick and the Sixers pick and all these things to put you in position to do something like this. But at this point, it's really just about looking at your timeline of the Thunder and saying, do I want to stick with Chet, J-Dub, we own the next 5, 10 years? Or do I want to get Giannis right now and we are the favorite to win the NBA championship for the next 2, 3 years? That's the thing he's going to have to battle. And I'm interested to see what happens because we saw what happened in 2013 when he paid Ibaka over Harden. I think he
Yeah.
learned from his mistake, but what direction do you go? And I'd love to see what happens.
This is what we expected, though, right? Like you mentioned, the abundance of picks and obviously hitting on each draft, literally that he's probably had since he's taken over as GM. Like this is what it's about now. They have draft capital that's not even theirs for the next 15 years. They could afford to do this and still have their own picks, even after like the trade for if it's not Giannis or another star is made. Like this is like you're exactly right. This is what you kind of have all these picks for and these young players that are interesting. You know, all the barking going on. Like OKC could finish as the 1 seed.
The
Like
Bucks would love Case and Wallace.
absolutely,
These
and they would
types
love
of
Chet.
players are gems for teams. Case and Wallace on the Hornets would be the starting two guard.
Yeah.
Truthfully, he would. So these pieces that they have aren't just throw-ins. These are guys like the Lakers back with Josh Hart, Brandon Ingram, Lonzo Ball, where like these guys turn out to be impact players in the NBA.
No doubt. And I mean, you've seen a little bit with, I want to like bring this back to Charlotte as we wrap. We've seen Jeff Peterson making some of these moves to get a lot of second round picks. Obviously, they made the deal last year for the 2027 pick from Miami, the Hayward trade. Charlotte is trying to build that up, and you love to see it. They're getting in on a lot of these buyouts from players to get picks, trying to create that in the East.
That's why when I see the Hornets fans crashing out, I don't, you don't really react to it that crazy. And I get it as a fan, by that game by game basis. After the Pistons and Pacers wins, they're like, whoa, we're going to the playoffs. We are on a 2 game win streak. We're going to Philadelphia. No Joel Embiid, no Tyrese, no Paul George. We're going crazy. This isn't the year. Jeff Peterson and Charles Lee know the timeline. It's kind of funny seeing Charles talk to us in post game pressers, and he's like kind of happy. He's like, yeah, saw some great things tonight. We can
Yeah,
work on a lot of things because this isn't the year. They
Yeah.
aren't expecting to be a playoff team this year.
But how NBA fans are really just sports fans in general. It's all about recency bias, right? What have you done for me lately? And lately, the Hornets have been losing games to where most sports fans and even analysts and writers alike can't really look that far down the road without somehow trashing their favorite team or the team that they cover. And just to be clear, we're not trashing the Hornets, but we all understand that there is a long-term plan in place for any young team that's trying to figure it out. The Hornets aren't the only ones trying to do this. The Nets probably have the same type of vision. And I wish I could say the Bulls did, but Jerry Reinsdorf is running a circus out there in Chicago. But the Hornets are definitely on the right path. It's just a little harder to see if you're a fan of the team. Just be patient, relax. It's coming.
it'll it'll come, yeah, for sure. One thing really fast. This was the third NBA arena that I've been to. So I've been to Barclays, obviously the Spectrum Center, and then United Center in Chicago. They have a sports book in the stadium. That's interesting to me.
That's nasty work.
Yeah, I mean, you're coming to the game, you already bought your tickets, you're buying those $12 beers, you might get some food, and then you're about to go lose a couple $100 on your favorite player, fucking up your parlay. So
I'm not going to the
Yeah.
United Center.
Or
I'll make
win.
sure I
I saw
never
that
step
clip
foot
of
in
Braun, man. Braun said, I heard someone say one more rebound. And he went and got that one more rebound. You never know. It could
Pointed
make
at
your
him.
day. Make your day.
Yeah.
Hey, you got to open up the possibilities to get sponsored by these guys. You can't be trashing them, Hunter. Come
Ah,
on,
you're
man.
right. You're right. You're right. My
I
fault.
mean, it's a fantastic marketing strategy to take advantage of drunk NBA fans that are going to step in and want to bet on Josh Giddey or Zach LaVine to score over 20 points. But my message to them, I'll make sure I never step foot in there because you'll probably get me.
Oh
I
yeah.
don't need that problem.
Well, they got me, so I'm speaking from a point of spite. So yeah, not just. But all right, you guys, appreciate y'all tuning into the Highway 49 podcast. Obviously, this was heavy NBA and Hornets centric. We'll get back to 49ers here in the next week. But expect definitely a lot more Hornets content coming. And Jerry will definitely be a repeat guest on the show. So, Jerry, we appreciate your time, man, and we'll be back soon.
Whoosh.